I recently did something, and not for the first time, but it's been nagging at me. It was just a regular morning, the kind where the air feels crisp and the scent of freshly brewed coffee fills the air. I walked into a coffee shop, a high-end chain, I think it was called Pressed, and ordered a $5 black coffee. And when it came time to pay, the iPad screen flashed a prompt, add a 20% tip. Now, I've always been diligent about tipping at restaurants. It feels like the right thing to do, rewarding good service, acknowledging the hard work of the people who make our mornings a little brighter. But that day, something shifted. I hesitated. Maybe it was the economy weighing heavy on my mind, or perhaps it was the growing sense that tipping culture has spiraled out of control over the past few years. 20%? That's only $1, but 20%. Then I started to doubt my sanity. What am I holding? It's coffee. It's 99% water. So I pressed no tip. Is it my responsibility to pay for the coffee and the labor? Should that be passed off to the customer? Shouldn't the shop owner pay wages commensurate to the profits? Why are they creating this awkward guilt trip situation for me? Or maybe, just maybe, I should stop patronizing these places altogether if I disagree with their tipping philosophy. I don't need this stress. I'm starting to understand why they call this place Pressed. And though the coffee seemed that it was dripped, so I was handed a cup of brown water in exchange for my $5, and they wanted more. It seemed less like a coffee and more like it was a poisoned chalice. You see, tipping in the US is as ingrained. I tip my barber and the Uber driver. I've always tipped my bartender and the pizza delivery guy. There might be a smattering of exceptional others that I've tipped, but I'm angry about tipping for fast food and brown water. The debate boils down to two rival positions. First, there's the belief that we tip based on the quality of service, a way to reward and encourage good work. Second, there's the idea that tipping is merely a social norm, an unspoken rule that defines what it means to be a good American. If you don't tip, it's almost as if you're saying you don't understand America. But let's peel back the layers. Why do we tip? Is it really about service, or has it morphed into something else? Maybe it's time to challenge this convention, to ask if it's fair to pass the burden of wages onto the customer instead of the employer. Imagine this. The barista fills your cup with coffee. No more complicated than that. Yet suddenly they wield tip-ready iPads, flashing percentages like traps. 15%, 20, 25%, or nothing. And there you are, standing in line, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes behind you as you make that decision. It's different from signing a check at a restaurant, where there's a bit more privacy. Here, it feels more like a public judgment, an expectation that makes you second-guess a simple transaction. So I had to dig deeper. Maybe I didn't think the act of making coffee deserved the same tipping standard as serving a meal. After all, it's a cup of coffee. The task itself doesn't seem as demanding as, say, waiting tables. But here's the kicker. Adding a $1 would immediately relieve me of an awkward guilt trip. So instead of guilt, I'd be angry that I'd been manipulated by an iPad into paying more than the posted price. So I didn't do it. The barista noticed, and I could sense the disapproval from those waiting behind me. It wasn't only about the money. It's a convoluted dance between social reputation and not being a sucker. Do I not understand America anymore? Am I feeling that the system just doesn't quite make sense? Why not flight attendants or Walmart clerks? The logic is elusive. It's all about tradition and the unspoken expectations that come with it. Tapping no tip on that iPad was a small act, almost concealable. But it sent a message, however tiny, a protest against a tipping system that feels like it's heading into excess. That's the America I know. Do it and then do it in excess. But maybe it's time to question this, to find a balance where service workers are fairly compensated without placing the burden on customers.